Hello there. This vlog is about achieving the seemingly impossible. I work with a lot of people who don't believe that they can achieve things that they go on to then achieve. And part of that is about they've become human doings rather than human beings, and that means they've got self-limiting beliefs. And so what I do is help them work around those self-limiting beliefs. And I just want to explain a little bit about how I do that. And there's about 3 key layers that go through people. And that's why I'm doing this from Badlands National Park in South Dakota in the USA. Because Badlands National Park is like a 50-mile wall made up of lots of rocks and mountains. And you'll see some of it behind me. And you'll see some of those layers that go through the rocks. And those layers go through every rock in the same way that these 3 layers I'm going to talk about are not the only layers that go through people, but are, in my opinion, the 3 key layers that go through people which can help them achieve far more than they actually do. And those 3 layers are emotional intelligence, transactional analysis, and neuro-linguistic programming. So a little bit about each. Emotional intelligence is about being aware of the feelings that we get and what they're telling us. And we get 4,000 or so of these a week, and how many do we actually think about? So it's about our own self-awareness, and then our self-management, and then our social awareness, and then our relationship management. So I'll come back to that in a moment. So in terms of transactional analysis, that's about parent, adult and child, these ego states that we have. The parent ego state is driven by our values, and those are the things that can very often limit us. The adult ego state is all about objectivity. The child ego state is about feelings. So perhaps you might have written an email sometime and then you've read it a day later, or you've put it in your draft box to read the following day, and you think to yourself, gosh, did I really write that? Well, yes you did, but it was just your different ego state. So when you wrote, if it comes out as being very cross, it was probably your parent ego state that wrote it. And when you look at it the following day, you change some of the words around so it becomes more adult and more objective. And then the third one is neuro-linguistic programming, and this is basically about changing the way that we think, changing the way that we believe. And these are some of the techniques that we can then use through neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, to enable us to achieve more things. So let's use a little case study. So about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a young woman who was struggling with one of her professional exams, and I saw a post on a website saying, only 21 days to my exam, I walked out of the exam the last time, I failed the time before that, what am I going to do? And it really was a cry for help. So over the next 3 weeks, every other evening, I spent about half an hour to an hour on the phone with this person, going through NLP, transactional analysis and emotional intelligence, looking at what was happening for her. So I started off by going through what happened from the night before she sat her last exam, and then going through all the feelings that she had, all the things that didn't go well, the things that did go well, right through to the completion of the exam. So that some of that helped her explore some of those feelings that she hadn't taken note of. So she became more emotionally intelligent about what those feelings were telling her and what impact they were having. We then looked at what she was doing in terms of her self-talk, talking herself out of the exam before she started. And this went into the transactional analysis side. So we looked at how it was unhelpful for her to be in the parent ego state or to be in the child ego state. We needed to help her get into and maintain her space in terms of the adult ego state for when she was in that exam. And then from the NLP, we looked at techniques that she could use to enable her to be more effective and manage those emotions and manage those ego states. One simple one for a lot of people is breathing. Because as soon as our breathing goes, we lose our physiology, and it means we can't be as effective as we want to be. So that's why sometimes people say take a deep breath or count to 10. That's all about getting our breathing back, because if we get our breathing back, then we get our physiology back. So we just talked and debrief things that happened before, put in techniques and activities to help her do different things, and tried out some of these during the test papers she was doing, and then she went into her exam. And she contacted me about 3 months later to say she'd got a distinction in that exam. Now, I'd done nothing in terms of her knowledge of the subject areas, and really I'd done nothing in terms of her performance in the exam, other than helping her understand these layers, these 3 layers: emotional intelligence, transactional analysis, and neuro-linguistic programming, and how they could work for her on an individual basis. And all these are different, and you know, I work with different people in different ways. So emotional intelligence, I said, in the exam situation, it's only about using it on yourself. So you need to examine your self-talk, your self-beliefs, because you're the only person you're thinking about. When I'm helping people in interview situations, that is partly about themselves, but also about relationship management. So sometimes people are feeling nervous about going into an exam. So one of the ways we look at there is about a pen. So what French scientists have shown is that if you put a pen in your mouth, once I can get my pen out of my pocket, you put a pen in your mouth between your lips, makes you frown. Put it between your teeth, makes you smile. And what they showed was that where people watched comedy films with the pen between their lips, they didn't laugh anything like as much as when the people watched it who had the pen between their teeth. So purely smiling, using those muscles in our faces to smile, can make us feel completely different and therefore behave differently. So one of the things to talk about in terms of when people are going for interview, make yourself smile for half an hour before the interview, and it will put yourself in a far better position. And then you have the other situation to help people is around mediations or dealing with conflict. So there it's not just about themselves, it's about also understanding the other person. So it's about emotional intelligence about yourself, but also about emotional intelligence around the relationship management. And then considering what ego state the other person is in and how you hook them into the most appropriate ego state, which is generally the adult, to have that conversation about managing conflict. So all 3 of those models, emotional intelligence, transactional analysis and NLP, will all work for people in those different situations. And there are different techniques for each of those different situations for each individual person. So a little bit like, as I say, with those rocks, we've got those layers going through each of those rocks. Those layers will all be slightly different in each of those rocks or each of those little hills. In the same way that those layers will all be different for individuals. So when I'm working with an individual, it will always be different in terms of the techniques that we come up with. But it works. And I've now, since that person helped them with their exam, I've started offering that service to people in terms of helping people who have failed exams and believe they cannot pass them. And I've now had 17 individuals, and all 17 of those individuals have passed those exams. And that's nothing to do with me giving them any help about the subject matter area, which has covered lots of different areas. It's purely helping them understand more about their approach and beliefs and how emotional intelligence, NLP and TA impact on them. And so it helps them to become more of a human being and less of a human doing, and therefore ridding themselves of that baggage of self-fulfilling prophecies and limiting beliefs. Thank you very much.